Do you know what it means?
Well, if you don't, then I'm here to explain it to you. What's up, guys? Welcome back. This time we're going to be getting into something a little bit different. There's a game coming out called Clair Obscur Expedition 33, and it looks fantastic. Comes out April 24th, and the hype around this game is kind of wild. Like, it hasn't been this way in a long time for JRPGs especially, and I'm here for it. I completely agree. It looks amazing. The combat's being compared to stuff like Mario RPG or other classics like Legend of Dragoon. All great games, great games. And the explorable world map, like, who doesn't love that? Who doesn't want that in their game? I am so excited for this. But while people are making comparisons, mainly talking about the battle system, I have uncovered some stuff while looking into the story, and I think the best comparison would be Eternal Sonata. So if you haven't played Eternal Sonata, it's a really great game. The battle system is more akin to something like Star Ocean or the Tales of series, but the story specifically in that game revolves around a historical figure, a famous composer named Frédéric Francois Chopin. You probably heard of him. I don't know if you've heard any of his songs or anything like that, but he was, very famous, very revered for what he did. And this game is historical fiction that revolves around him and his final dream before his death. Now, I think that Frédéric Francois Chopin has a lot in common with the character from Expedition 33, and I have been looking into it, and I think that this reveals more to do with the story as a whole. So this all started when I was trying to make a video like other creators are, mainly about digging deeper into the trailers, trying to see what they can find to uncover details about the game, but I uncovered more than I expected, way more than I expected to uncover, and I guess I'll just get started, because now it's turned from just a short informational video about the game's combat system to a full-blown theory about the story. So just so you know, I'm really confident about this. I feel like the evidence I have fully supports this theory, and it is almost to the point where I want to allow you some time to click away. Now, this isn't official spoilers, but I think that I have figured it out, and it could potentially spoil the game. So I'm saying that now. You've had your chance. Here we go. So this all started when I was watching the developer direct, and the artistic director for the game mentioned that a big inspiration for the game was the Belle Epoque era in France. This is also known as the Beautiful Era. It was from 1871 to 1914. And so I started looking into it, seeing maybe I'll find something. And I noticed a character, well, a name that is the same as a character in the game. And it was from the official site. You can see the description of a character named Renoir. And the historical figure from that era in real life was Pierre-Auguste Renoir. And I think, much like Frédéric Francois Chopin and Frédéric from Eternal Sonata, Pierre-Auguste Renoir and Renoir are the same person in this game. And I definitely have the evidence to back this up. So they may not look the same, but you can see they took artistic liberties, and that's fine. You don't want them to look exactly the same. You need to make it more interesting, mysterious, make it your own, make it original. And they've definitely done that, much like they did with Eternal Sonata. He looks different. He looks more fantasy-like. And that's a lot like what they've done with Renoir here. So this theory goes much deeper than just relating the historical figure to the fictional character in this game. But to understand that, we're going to have to start at the beginning with a little history lesson. I know. Stick with me. It will be worth it. This is so cool, guys. So what's so fascinating about Pierre-Auguste Renoir and Renoir the character is not only that they share the same name, but they have some striking similarities as well. And I'm going to go over a few, and then I'll talk about the theory, and then I'll come back when it's relevant, because there's multiple things we have to go over, and we're just going to take it a step at a time, especially to keep this entertaining. So the first thing I wanted to go over was the Louvre. Now, I was watching a documentary about him, and it said that he grew up with a very specific wording. He grew up in the shadow of the Louvre. Now, this is very important for later, so remember that. And it's the Louvre is a museum where some of the finest artworks of all time are displayed even today, but it was also there in the 1800s when Pierre-Auguste Renoir was growing up. So why does this matter? Well, I think that the Louvre is the monolith, because, like the lady said in the documentary, he grew up in the shadow of the Louvre. Verso says this in the trailer.
In the shadow
of the monolith.
In the shadow of the monolith. Now, this isn't a very strong connection, but I do believe it set me on the right path to figure everything out. Now let's discuss this. So in the Louvre, there's many works of art on display, and they're preserved for all time. Well, I believe in the monolith, and as you can see, just behind the paintress when she stands up, there is a doorway there. And at the actual Louvre, the doors look like this. So they're kind of similar, and I think that they are indeed pretty much symbolic or metaphorically linked in some way. Now, I believe if you were to go inside of the monolith through this doorway, that you would find a work of art linking this world that they're in, the painted fictional world, back to reality. And on the other side of that, in the realistic world, in reality, there would be many paintings displayed within the monolith there. And I believe many other people have used this before him. But I believe he stumbled upon it and made his painting and created this world. Now, it makes him a very key character in all of this, but I think that's why they're holding back so much information. They don't want to give that away. So you really need to look at it more like Mario 64. Mario jumps through a painting, goes to a specific stage, he comes back out. All of these are held within the castle, the different levels, the different paintings, all portals to different worlds. That is how I think the Louvre or the monolith works in this game. Keep that in the back of your mind going forward. For now, I need to talk about someone named Aline Charago. This woman appeared in many of his paintings. Some people referred to her as his mistress, but she was actually his muse and eventually his wife. They had 3 kids together, and they were together until they died. In Renoir's later years, he was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. He could barely walk, could barely hold the paintbrush. The doctors actually told him to quit painting because it would only make the situation worse. A popular quote of his is, "Pain passes, but beauty remains." Now, this is very important because it shows just how dedicated he was to his work. And Aline knew that, and she would try and help motivate him, pose for him, pick the paintbrush up when he dropped it, put it back between his fingers. But he struggled internally with the fact that he couldn't capture her beauty like he did when she was younger. And this combats his impressionistic art style. It really revolved around him painting things in an idealized way, how he thought they should be: pretty, vibrant, bright, all of this. And he just couldn't really capture her the same way that he could when they were younger. So how does this tie into the game? Well, I was listening to some of the music, and a lot of it's in French or Latin. There's actually even a fictional language that is actually impossible to translate because it doesn't have a translation, at least not yet anyway. Maybe you'll find out in the game. But I argue that you don't really need it. The context is enough, and there's some other things that are revealed that I think is plenty enough to tell you what's going on. So in the song, "Un vie à peindre" actually means a life to paint. Extremely relevant here. It speaks of this woman named Alina and how she's suffering and crying. I think that this Alina is Aline. Aline Charago is the inspiration for the character Alina. And I think that Alina is also the paintress. Hang in there, and I will tell you why very shortly. There is one more character that we have to talk about before we can continue. And that character is Verso. Verso, another character like Renoir, very difficult to get any information about him at all. But I have some evidence to prove that Verso and Renoir are the same person. So why would I say this? Well, let's talk about some things that they have in common. First off, in the trailer,
May everything be decided
Before their very eyes
between the bars,
of that prison,
in the shadow.
of the monolith.
they're finishing each other's sentences. This isn't enough evidence, but it's something to keep in mind. Now, they also have this in common. Renoir has a scar, or to me it looks more like a oil paint mark or a burn, some kind of marking. And I believe it to be a marking that he has used the power of the monolith to create this fictional world and even enter it. How do I think that he entered it? Well, look at Verso. If he is Renoir, he is obviously a younger, more idealized version of him. And this goes into Renoir's painting style of Impressionism. Of course, he painted himself younger in a more idealized way to preserve his immortality as a younger person. It's much better than in his old age with his arthritis and everything. So, how are they the same? What ties them together entirely? Well, the name Verso means the other side. It has multiple meanings, but in the context of art, it means the other side of a canvas or a piece of paper. And think like this. If you were to paint a face on one side, like on the front of a piece of paper, and then paint a face on the back side of a piece of paper, and then on the front side, you paint a scar over the right eye. Well, on the back side, the scar will be over the left eye. And I think this directly ties them together. I think Renoir painted himself younger into this fictional world and was marked by the monolith with the scar, and it put it on both of them. And now they're working together for some reason, which I'll get to their motives shortly. But for now, I just wanted to make the point that they are the same person. You're probably thinking, how could there be any more to this theory? There is. I dug really deep and it gets even crazier. So the next thing I need to talk about are the gestrels. Now, with this one, I'll explain it after and I'll just hit you with the theory right out of the gate. The gestrels are artists who have used the monolith before. They are reborn as the gestrels. Now, why? How can this possibly be? Well, if you look at them, they look like paintbrush people, and like they have a wooden texture, like body type, paintbrush style, like hair and fur and such. And most of them don't speak the human language. Now, you're saying, wouldn't humans who have used the monolith before speak the human language? Well, yeah, but I'd say they're all from different eras, different movements, and some of them so old and ancient that they don't speak like English or French. They would, I don't know what they would speak in, like prehistoric and so on. Maybe Latin at one point. They just don't understand each other. So they don't speak the current language of most people in the world. And this is backed up by Monaco. Now, Monaco does speak the human language, as they call it in his character description. But I believe he's tied to something I've seen when I was looking through the historical information, the Rococo period. Monaco, Rococo, they sound a lot alike. But I think he was an artist from the Rococo era, which was very recent when talking about the Belle Epoque era of France. It actually overlapped with it a little bit, I believe. It was shortly before Impressionism, and people were still talking about it even when Pierre-Auguste Renoir was painting. This is very important. So he's so recent that he can speak the same language as everyone else in the painted world. But someone that has used it way before him, one of the other gestrels, would not. Someone from the prehistoric era or ancient Egyptian, they would not be able to speak the human current language. It's also important to note that the name gestrel comes from gestural, which means in context of art, it means like a brush stroke from the artist. And I think that this is very symbolic because the artists have become the artwork or a tool to keep their artwork going as they've been reborn as literal paintbrushes, living, walking, breathing paintbrush people. This is crazy. So why did they turn into paintbrush people? Well, I think that this is the sacrifice that you make when you paint yourself into this world. Like the mark on Renoir, I think he is cursed to eventually become a gestrel. So we've discussed Aline Charagot, Alina, the paintress, the Louvre, the monolith, Pierre Auguste Renoir, Renoir the character in the game, and Verso, as well as the gesturals and the sacrifice you make when you use the monolith. Anyway, so now that we have all of this information, we can finally make sense of this theory. So I'm going to start at the beginning. Renoir, him and Aline Charagot, they died 4 years apart. She died first, and then he died 4 years later. His health declined rapidly, according to many of the sources that I've found. And what I think happened was, in the story of the game, he's in reality, finds this monolith, and he has painted inside of it. She's still alive and with him. He paints this picture and then finds that he can immortalize himself within it. He goes inside the painting and has her carry out painting more while he's gone. As in actual history, she helped him. So I think that she's helping him paint, and then he realizes that he can be immortalized in there, but he goes back to reality and finds that she's dead. So what does he do? Much like how she helped him, he helps her paint herself into the painting. Now, we've already discussed how if you use the power of the monolith, that you're marked cursed to become a gestural. When you die, you will be reborn as a gestural. Well, if you look at the paintress, when she stands up to paint, look at her legs. That is not a human leg. There's something definitely off with this. And I think that she was painted into the world as an empty vessel or a gestural. And he wanted to immortalize her in there, but he was too late. And I think this is where the crux of everything goes wrong. I think this is where everything goes wrong. I think it was a beautiful, perfect, vibrant world, just like his impressionistic style before he brought her in after she died. I think this introduced a dark, harsh reality into the painting that she was already dead. She entered into it without a soul because she was already dead before she got painted into it. That's why the paintress is so lifeless. She sleeps, wakes up once a year to paint a cursed number, and it's ticking down every year until it gets to 0, and then it'll all end. So it says on Renoir's character description on the official site for the game that his motivations are to save his family at any cost. He's willing to make sacrifices for victory, and his conditions for victory are very unclear. But I believe it is to somehow preserve Alina, immortalize her, save her, because he's in love with her and he wants to keep her alive, just like how he's been able to stay alive in the painting. But there's also the cursed number, and everyone else is going to die. Eventually, it'll just be him and Verso and Alina, because they're the only ones, and they'll be reborn as gesturals. Of course, the gesturals will still be there, awaiting for someone else to come along and paint another picture. But it says that one of his motivations is to save his family. Now, I guess a family could mean just one other person, but I want to think that there is one more person in his family. Now, in real life, he had 3 kids, but they probably took some artistic liberties here and kind of changed things around a little bit. There's one other character that is very integral to this, and in the trailer, she can be seen talking to the only person talking to these 2 characters and directly interacting with the paintress, and that's Maëlle. She says she's been having nightmares, and it's very nightmare-esque in this one scene when she has blood all over her, holding one of the armbands of an expedition member like she's lost someone, and falls to her knees and is yelling at the paintress. And it's like she's on this like beach of some kind. Well, Renoir is actually speaking to her here. She says, and he says that it's a kindness, not a cruelty, what the paintress is doing. Now, this could mean many things, and I'll get into that soon, but she's also seen in another part of the trailer with Verso, and there's a bunch of stuff on fire, and he turns around and looks at her. And so she's the only person interacting with these people. Either she's the only person that can see them, they're speaking, like through the nightmares, the dreams, whatever. she has a direct connection to these people. She can also be seen in one of the parts of the trailer talking to someone, saying it's not what she expected out here. And this is actually cut at just the right moment to where, as she's saying this, unless she repeats herself, it looks like she's in two different places at once, because she starts the sentence in one place and then it cuts to another one, and you can see her mouth moving. She is still saying this. I think that she's saying it both in reality and in the fictional painted world at the same time.
I've been having nightmares. Being out here isn't what I expected.
And I think she has special powers. Now, Mael, her name translates to princess. She was orphaned at age 3. Now she's 16, the youngest member of the expedition. Young, ambitious. Ambitious is another meaning for her name, but princess is a very interesting one to look at. Maybe she's meant to inherit something, or maybe the world itself, or the abilities of the paintress, or something from Renoir. One of the meanings of his name is king. I don't know how accurate that is, honestly. There's many meanings for his name. But what is truly interesting about it is when she's speaking with Renoir and he tells her it's a kindness, not a cruelty. I think that he, and he's talking a little bit about it before, saying that, do you know what it means to fade away, their love for each other? And I think that that further backs up how he's trying to immortalize everything. He wants everyone to stay together and be happy, immortalized in this painted world forever. And a huge theme of the game is the clair obscur, meaning light and shadow, or light and dark. Like maybe like a really happy thing and a really sad thing. There's plenty of ways that you could look at it. But I think this is perfectly encapsulated by Alina being introduced to his perfect world in a soulless body and brings in the darkness. And life is both a mix of light and dark. It's light and dark is actually clair obscur. Actually, in French, chiaroscuro is a technique in art that is used to model 3D objects. And I think this means to create life. You need both. You can't just have one or the other. So I think Mael, in the end, will disagree with him that you can't have a perfect world. And maybe he's trying to get her to take the paintress's place and paint a perfect world again. But I think in the end, she will not want to. I think that she'll make it more like the real world, but she will keep the people within the painting alive. I think she will actually take over. But who's to say, really? That's not here or there when it comes to this theory. But the whole thing with clair obscur literally being in the title, its meaning of light and shadow, and how many things I've found that directly correlate with this, I think is very important. So I can't fully prove and back up Mael is a descendant of Renoir. I just think that she is. I think this will matter later. And if I can find evidence to support this, I will have another video, another theory to back this up. But for now, I think we need to talk about the monolith ticking down and the paintress. So when Renoir introduced a dead body, a lifeless body, into the painting, I think that it created some kind of darkness in the world. Before she came, I think that the time stood still within the painting, in the painted world. Everyone was happy, no problems at all. Perfect world. And then she came in and it introduced a harsh reality. Time started ticking down. You can see in the world that time was frozen still, at least at some point, or still is. But there's also tons of opposites going on. So you can see floating objects and continents in the sky as if it's not moving. And then yet time does pass by because of each year going by, and then they fade away when their number comes. And they're aging, obviously. All the characters have different motivations for wanting to stop the paintress. One that I think is going to be very important, Verso, I do not believe that he will be on Renoir's side. And first off, the game says that there will be 6 party members. We've only seen 5, that being Gustave, Ciel, Lune, Mael, and Monaco. So there's one more that they haven't shown us, and it's because they're the same person. It's Verso and Renoir. But I think Verso is going to be the more permanent member. Renoir may join for a little bit. What makes me think that they both will is there's a Baguette trailer, and it shows variant costumes for everybody, and it shows the 5 that I mentioned, as well as Verso and Renoir in their alternate costumes. And I don't think that they would have given alternate costumes to characters you will not be able to play as or see very often. So I think that Renoir and Verso will join the party, both of them at some point, maybe at the same time, maybe at different times. But I do think that Verso will be your permanent party, 6th party member, and will eventually turn against Renoir. And I don't know how it will end. I have many theories, nothing to really back it up. But I would say it would be something along the lines of Mael evolving his art style, changing the world. If I had to guess a happy ending, it would be something along the lines of she paints more realistically and combines the light and dark into a happy painting, and these characters are allowed to exist much like they would in the real world, die at just when they're meant to die, not when their number comes up on the cursed thing, on the cursed monolith, or anything like that. I think that it'll be a mixture of light and dark, and will evolve his art, much like in real life when the next artist comes along, they usually evolve it. And that's kind of like what Pierre-Auguste Renoir did with the Rococo movement. He evolved it and changed it into Impressionism. And I think that that's what is in store for the characters in the game. So yeah, I think that that just about covers everything. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, subscribe if you haven't already, and most importantly, share the video. I want as much hype going around about this game as if there's not enough already, but I'm super excited about this. I cannot wait to play it. I'll be streaming it when it comes out, so yeah, don't forget to subscribe so that you'll know when I'm streaming it. I'm going to stream it the night that it comes out, like a minute after it's out. I'm going to be streaming it, and I'm going to play this game as much as possible until I get to the end. And it's just, I'm really, truly excited for this. So I don't think we've seen anything like this in a long time. It's going to be a fantastic game. At least I hope so. That's pretty much it. Oh, and make sure to go reserve the game. The collector's edition is all sold out, but you can still get any of the other versions. It's available on PS5, Xbox, Steam, and the Epic Games Store. So you can get standard, deluxe, the Lumiere edition, which comes with steelbook and everything, but the monolith music box in the middle. But yeah, unfortunately the collector's edition sold out. But most importantly, do not forget,
Tomorrow comes.
Demain viendra.
Tomorrow comes.
Demain viendra.
Demain viendra.
Tomorrow comes.
tomorrow comes. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you all have a good one, and I'll see you on the next one.
Baby, I wish you missed me like that.